Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The Jihad and Action of Ibn Taymiyyah. The life of Ibn Taymiyyah was distinguished with tremendous quality of ordering the good, forbidding the evil, and performing jihad for the cause of Allah. He combined his roles of teaching, issuing legal verdicts, and writing with actions of the highest magnitude. His whole life was in fact filled with jihad. With a very brief examination of his life in this era, we can point out a number of incidents. Ordering the good and forbidding the evil. A. His destruction of idols and places that were worshipped besides Allah, and the privation of people from visiting such places. This practical aspect was preceded by two stages. The first, by explaining the reality of these shrines in that many of them were fabricated, and that many of the graves that were glorified and journeyed to were in fact not even those of whom they were attributed to. The second, by way of intellectual discourse through direct debates, books, and letters, and explain the shirk and innovations connected to such acts, and also through presenting the opinions of opponents and refuting the arguments. B. His stance against the Christians. He wrote a letter to the then Christian king of Cyprus inviting to Islam and exposing the lies and corruption being committed by the priests and monks, while they knew fully well that they were upon falsehood. After mentioning the devoutness of the king, his love for knowledge and good conduct towards the people, Ibn Taymiyyah then invited him to embrace Islam and adopt the correct belief. He did this in a gentle and exemplary manner, addressing his intellect and entrusting him to behave benevolently towards the Muslim in Cyprus, not to strive to change the religion of single one of them. He also engaged in debate with Christians, some of which he himself referred to in his book Al-Jawab as-Sahih. C. He took many stances against the Sufiya. A famous one was against the Bata'iyya. He refuted them and exposed their satanic behavior, such as entering to the fire and emerging unharmed, and claiming that this was an indication of the miraculous nature. He explained that even if they did this or flew in their air, it will not be an evidence that could be used to declare the violations of the Sharia to be correct. He challenged them by proposing to also enter into the fire with them on the condition that they first wash themselves with vinegar and hot water. Ultimately, they were exposed and defeated, and they agreed to a complete adherence to the book and Sunnah. D. In the year 699 Hijriah, he and a number of his companions rose against some taverns. They broke their utensils, split their wine, and chastised a number of them, which caused the people to come out and rejoice at this. As for his stance against the rulers, they were famous. One of the well-known ones was his stance against Kazan, the ruler of Tatars. At a time when the Tatars commanded awe and authority, he spoke the ruler with strong words concerning the actions, spread of corruption, and infringement of the sanctities of the Muslims, whilst they themselves claimed to be Muslims. Likewise, his strong words with Sultan al-Nasir convinced the Sultan to refrain from pursuing a course of action which was impermissible. F. Ibn Taymiyyah also had an effect in causing the rulers to assume the role of commanding the good and forbidding the evil. An example of this is when bribery became widespread and became an influencing factor in holding offices, and even in abolishing capital punishment in the year 712 Hijriah. An official decree was sent to Damascus from the Sultan, citing that no one should be granted a post or office through money or bribery, and that the killer is to be punished by the law of the Sharia. This decree emanated through the advice and consultation of Ibn Taymiyyah. These are some examples that demonstrate the efforts of Ibn Taymiyyah, may Allah have mercy upon him, in ordering the good and forbidding the evil. One also notices when reading his biography that Ibn Taymiyyah had the assistance of a number of companies in carrying out such acts. His jihad against the Tatars. Ibn Taymiyyah played a great role in establishing jihad against the Tatars. He clarified the reality of their condition and showed that it was an obligation to fight them. Firstly, because of the consensus of the scholars on the obligation of fighting any group that openly rejects and resists the laws of Islam. And secondly, explaining that this ruling is applicable to the Tatars because of their condition. He elucidated the causes for victory and explained that it was not impossible or difficult to achieve victory over them if the Muslim adopted the causes that achieve victory, such as judging by the Sharia, putting an end to oppression, spreading justice, and being sincere in one's intention when performing jihad in Allah's cause. We find Ibn Taymiyyah ordering the people in the battle of Shaqaq, which took place in the month of Ramadan to break fast in emulation of the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ. Again, when Ibn Taymiyyah encouraged the Sultan to perform jihad, the Sultan asked him to take position by his side, to which Ibn Taymiyyah replied, the sunnah is for each man to stand behind the flag of his people, and we are from Sham, so we'll only stand with them. After performing jihad against the Tatars and defeating them, we see Ibn Taymiyyah analyzing the battles, expounding upon the beneficial lessons that can be derived from them, and illustrating the areas of military between these battles against the Tatars and the battles of the Prophet ﷺ. Is jihad against the Christian and the Rafida. The majority of references do not make mention of Ibn Taymiyyah's role in jihad against the Christians before their final expulsion from Sham. Al-Bazzar, however, does mention the following when discussing the bravery and strength of heart of Ibn Taymiyyah. They relate that they saw of him at the conquest of Akka such a display of bravery that was beyond description. They say that he was a reason behind its seizure by the Muslims because of his deeds, advice, and sharp perception. As for the Rafida, they fortified themselves in the mountains of Al-Jard and Al-Khasrawaniyin. Ibn Taymiyyah headed for them in the year 704 Hijriya with a group of his companions, and requested a number of them to repent, and they enjoined the laws of Islam upon them. In the beginning of the year 705 Hijriya, Ibn Taymiyyah went to battle with the brigade and the deputy sultan of Sham, and Allah aided them over the Rafida. These are the examples of jihad of Ibn Taymiyyah, may Allah have us upon him, and his unification knowledge with action. The status and the rank of Ibn Taymiyyah. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah had the loftiest among the scholars of his time. This was a number of reasons, such as his ability to clarify matters that were vague to other scholars of his time, such as the issue of fighting the Tatar and the issue of the wealth obtained from some of the sect of the Rafida. Ibn Taymiyyah expounded upon these matters and clarified them to the people. In the year 701 Hijriya, a Jew came from Khaybar alleging that he had a letter from the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, which abrogated the jizya that the Jews had to pay the Muslims. Ibn Taymiyyah exposed his lies and critically scrutinized and invalidated the letter from a hadith point of view and relying upon his historical knowledge. While Ibn Taymiyyah was in prison in Cairo, Ibn Kathir mentions difficult legal questions used to be sent to him from governors and specific people, which the students could not deal with, and he will respond from the book and Sunnah in a way that will behold the minds. Another reason was his role in jihad. He was not only a brave soldier, but also an instructor and leader. He was sought after for advice and military strategy. Most importantly, one of the greatest causes behind his exalted rank amidst the scholars and common people alike was his comprehensive knowledge. When he gave a lecture, delivered a sermon, gave a legal ruling, wrote a letter, or authored a book in any field, he will produce a level of knowledge that far excelled the other scholars of his time. This is why Ibn Taymiyyah became a reference point amongst the people. Whenever two people fell into dispute over a matter, and they could be from the people of knowledge and the student alike, as noticed from some questions, his opinion will be the deciding factor. Al-Hafid al-Dhahabi said, "He is far greater than the likes of me to inform on his qualities. If I were made to swear by Allah, by the corner of the Kaaba and the place of Ibrahim, I will say that I have not seen with my two eyes the like of him, and by Allah, he himself has not seen his own like in knowledge." Al-Hafid al-Mizi said, "I have not seen the like of him, and nor has he seen the like of himself. I have not seen one more knowledgeable of the book of Allah and the Sunnah of his Messenger, and more compliant it than him." Al-Imam Ibn Ad-Daqiq al-Eid said, "When I met Ibn Taymiyyah, I saw a person who had all the types of knowledge between his eyes. He will take of it what he desired, and leave of it what he desired." Al-Hafid Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, may Allah have mercy upon him, mentioned in the context of refuting the one who opposed that Ibn Taymiyyah be termed Shaykh al-Islam. Their claim of Taqiyuddin is more known than that of the son, and entitling him Shaykh al-Islam of his era remains until our time upon the various tongues. It will continue tomorrow as it was yesterday, No one refutes this but a person who is ignorant of his prestige, or one who turns away from equity. It can't be known more than the sun. The sun, yani, the sun is people know the sun a lot. But at that place I said, yani, titling. No, it's not title. It's not titling, but it's titling. أيوة نعم. يلا grant us success. شيخ كمال الدين ابن الزملكاني, who debated with Ibn Taymiyyah on more than one occasion, said, whenever he was questioned on a particular field of knowledge, the one who witnessed and heard the answer concluded that he had no knowledge of any other field and that no one possessed such as his knowledge. The jurists of all groups, whenever they sat with him, they will benefit from him regarding their own schools of thought in areas they previously were unaware of. It was not known that he debated anyone whereby the discussion came to a standstill, or that whenever he spoke on about a particular field of knowledge, whether it be related or to the sciences of the Sharia, or else that he will not then excel the specialists of that field and those who are affiliated to it. Al-Hafid Na'am, Aywa. He also said the prerequisites of Ijtihad were combined within him in the way they should be. He was very proficient in adoring very well, and in excelling in expression, arrangement, classification, and explanation. Al-Hafid Ibn Kathir said, it was rare for him to hear something and not memorize it, and he occupied himself with the sciences. He was intelligent and had committed much to memory, and thus become an imam in tafsir and what pertained to it. He had comprehensive knowledge of fiqh. It was said that he had more knowledge of the fiqh of the madhabs than the followers of those very same madhabs in his time and other times. He was fully aware of the different opinions of the scholars. He was a scholar in usul, the branches of the religion, grammar, usul, the branches of the religion, grammar, the language, and other textual and intellectual sciences. He was never overcome in a sitting, and no noble scholar will speak to him on a particular science except that he thought that this science was the specialty of Ibn Taymiyyah, and they will see him as being well versed in it and having perfected it. As for Hadith, then he was the carrier of its flag, a Hafid in Hadith, and able to distinguish the weak from the strong, fully acquainted with the narrators and being proficient in this. Abu Hayyan al-Andalusi said, by Allah, my two eyes have never seen the like of Ibn Taymiyyah. Al-Hafid Badruddin al-Aini al-Hanafi said, he is the Imam, the noble, the masterful, the pure, the devout, the proficient in the two sciences of Hadith and Tafsir, Fiqh, and the two fundamentals, that is the Book and Sunnah, with determination and precision. He is the sharp sword against the innovators, the authority who established the matters of the religion, and the great command of the good and forbid of evil. He possessed noble concern, bravery, and embarked upon that which frightened and deterred. He was of much remembrance, fasting, prayer, and worship. The overalls and imprisonment of Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah was put through many trials throughout his life, and it is extremely difficult to deal with them and present them properly in this brief discussion on him, so I'll merely list the more famous ones. It's only because of his treatise Al-Hamawiyya in the year 698 Hijriya. It's only on debate because of his treatise Al-Wasatiyya in the year 705 Hijriya. It's only summons to Egypt and imprisonment there in the year 705 Hijriya for 18 months. It's only with the Sufi in Egypt after his release. His deportation to Alexandria in the year 709 Hijriya and imprisonment there for 8 months. He is ordeal because of his specific verdict related to divorce and resultant imprisonment in the year 720 Hijriya for 5 months. He is ordeal because of his legal verdict banning the undertaking of journeys, especially to visit graves, and resulting imprisonment in the year 726 Hijriya until he passed away, may Allah have mercy upon him, in the year 728 Hijriya. Ibn Taymiyyah's response to these orders was always a positive one, which turned these trials and tribulations by the favor of Allah into a great opportunity for increasing Iman and reacting positively in knowledge and action. His summons to Egypt, Aywa, for example, led him to debate and truly deal with the innovators who had spread their beliefs throughout the region. His role in prison was another manifestation of this blessing, such as his effort in educating the prisoners and nurturing them into the extent that the dissemination of knowledge and religion within the prison excelled certain institutions outside the prison. This happened in both Egypt and Alexandria. His decision to remain in Egypt after being released was as he mentioned in a letter to his mother, because of matters necessary to religion and the world. This brought about much goodness in aiding the Sunnah and suppressing innovations. One of the greatest positive results was the books and papers he wrote and authored within prison. He also pardoned those who oppressed him, even when Ibn Taymiyyah had the opportunity to exact revenge. One of his opponents, Ibn al-Makhluf, the Maliki judge, said, "We did not see the likes of Ibn Taymiyyah. We incited against him, but we were not able to overpower him. When he was able to overpower us, he instead pardoned us and pleaded on our behalf." Another positive outcome was that these orderlies in themselves were a reason for the widespread circulation of Ibn Taymiyyah's works.